Welcome to the SRS Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron J. Babyar, and I'm the Training Director of Support Raising Solutions. Whether you're a new ministry worker or a veteran looking to increase your competence and confidence, Support Raising Solutions seeks to bless you in your quest to be a spiritually healthy, vision-driven, fully funded Great Commission worker. So glad you could join us once again on the SRS Podcast. We are blessed to have Jenn Fortner join us once again for part 3 of our podcast series on not giving up. You know, when you are raising support, there are so many reasons, excuses, difficulties, things that come at you while raising support that make it very tempting just to kind of throw in the towel and go, well, I'll get to it later, or I guess it wasn't meant to be, or whatever. And the reality is we often see some of the same things tripping people up as they're on their path to being spiritually healthy, vision-driven, and fully funded. So Jenn is joining us once again. This is a part 3 of a 3-part podcast series. And so I encourage you, go back and listen to the first 2 if you haven't already heard those. Meanwhile, though, Jenn Fortner, my friend, welcome back to the SRS Podcast.
Hey, thank you, Aaron. Thank you. You having a good day?
I am having a great day. Today, I did not get to do an exercise thing quite yet, but I have one planned for this afternoon, and I am not like the most svelte Olympic athlete by any stretch of imagination. However, I do better when I spend time in the Word and when I get some exercise in every day. So those things look like they're both going to happen successfully today. So I'm already happy. So,
oh, hey, that's awesome.
Yeah. What about you? How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. We are in summer mode with our kids in our daycare. So my mother-in-law is hanging out with my kids because she's amazing. Shout outs to grandmas.
Yes.
And then I'm going to grab them, and I'm not going to do as fun things as you are. I'm taking my kids to the doctor today for their well visit, which they're not looking forward to. So we'll see how it goes.
I pray there are stickers and suckers in your children's lives.
I think there's stickers and suckers in their future for sure.
Good. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're picking up, of course, on part 3 of our podcast series on not giving up while raising support. Of course, in the first few episodes, we talked about being ready, like giving your 30-second speech, not burning out by taking a Sabbath, getting proper sleep and eating healthy and just having some good habits. But we still have a couple things we wanted to talk about today. And so let's just jump right in. And Jenn, you and I, of course, we don't pre-rehearse this, but you did share just a couple of brief ideas with me to give me structure on questions to ask you. So what was the fourth thing, because there were 5 in total, what was the fourth thing that you're like, I want to touch on this to people that are thinking about not giving up? So
when thinking about not giving up, another, bullet point is keep the end goal in mind. As you work towards, like, keep what it is that you are tracking towards, what it is that you are working towards, whether that's first time getting to fully funded or, your support has dropped off and you need to go to 100%. Keep that end goal in mind, and don't, I think the easy thing to do is sometimes to get sidetracked by other great things, or maybe not even so great. Like, I know some people that would rather organize their sock drawer than work on, their support raising.
Hey, I have some cool socks, so don't get too personal.
I do too. I like me some socks in the summer. Okay. Or sorry, in the summer, that would be weird. In the winter. Okay. But yes, I think it's easy though. But what I mean by other great things is sometimes, in a support raising season, I've seen some of the folks that I work with be really involved in lots of side projects, lots of other great things. And there's nothing wrong with that. But our capacity is sort of, it's limited in the sense of but it's not limited in the sense that everybody's got the same amount of hours in a day, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't have more than you do, Aaron. But it is a choice of what I do with my time. Yes. And so if I want to get fully funded, sometimes I might have to take a step back on some great things that I have in that season in order to, get to that 100% goal, to work on it, to have the capacity to work on it,
Yes.
to have the fortitude to do it well. And
Yeah.
so that might mean stepping back away from, being on worship team for a season, or letting somebody take over, hosting your small group at your church, and maybe you just attend, or maybe, it's something that is good that you might have to give up for a season, but in order to work with what you're doing with raising support, it might mean that you cut out some of those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Let's
I
do
see
that.
that as a complication for a lot of folks sometimes, because they don't want to do that, but it's really easy to get sidetracked.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second, because sometimes
Sure.
people don't want to back away from something that it might even be quote unquote ministry. And so that
Mm-hmm.
makes it even harder to back away from it. And I find myself unpacking that idea pretty frequently with different ministry leaders. Do you mind sharing, was there, when you were doing your primary support raising season back in the
Mm-hmm.
day, for some people, this isn't an issue because they just moved and that's like simple, but for others, like it's a major interruption in their life and they have to really practically make a choice about stepping away from something. Did that happen with you?
Yeah, oh, absolutely, multiple times. And, I find myself even in a season right now where I've had to do that because I'm taking on some different responsibilities. And so
Yeah.
I'm having to sort of step away from some things that I enjoy doing, but saying, okay, what do I need to cut out? What are things that are a little
Right.
too much?
What was something you gave up at one point
Yeah,
because you needed to raise
I
support?
led a small group when I was in a support raising season a couple years ago, and it was a real challenge because I loved my small group. But here's what I did, Aaron, is I kind of gave this example earlier, but instead of like not going to small group at all, I just said, hey guys, I am going to hand this over to Amanda. Let's make up a name. I'm going to hand this over to Amanda because she is awesome. She's going to do a great job. And I'm going to step away a little bit, and I'm going to be here and there, but I'm going to mostly be here. But I'm
Mm,
going to let go of the responsibility of hosting, and it's going to be at her house for a little bit.
okay.
And I handed it off, and I was able to attend that small group, and I loved it, but I didn't have to prepare. I didn't have the emotional load that it took to lead a group, and Amanda did great. And here's the thing: is sometimes we like leading things because we like to be in charge. And sometimes God's saying, hey, it's not time, it's not the season for you to be in charge of that. Let Amanda take it, or whoever it is,
Right.
and be a part of it as much as you can be. But
Right.
sometimes it does mean like, okay, if you're going to be traveling a lot and you're going to be speaking at churches on Sundays or whatever it is, it might not be the season to continue to play the bass guitar on worship team.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think there's times where we just have to step away and say, guys, I'm gonna come back to it when I can, or let's find some leadership that can take over this role, or step down from a couple things. And maybe it's your kids are doing 5 sports in one season, and maybe it's okay, everybody's just going to drop back to one sport or whatever it is.
Well,
So
sports was the one that hit me.
mhm.
I have a couple boys that well, actually we have 4 kids, but I'm speaking of 2 in particular that played travel baseball, and they were both ridiculously blessed and won all kinds of things and played on a national level with some stuff, blah blah blah, bragging father here. But in the midst of that, I had a batting cage in my backyard. Like I taught him how to hit. I played a little ball when I was younger, and
Mhm.
so suddenly, when people saw how my boys could hit, they would go, "Hey, can you help my son hit?" And I had, I guess you could say, I kind of fell into giving some coaching lessons, and all of a sudden, I mean, my yard was busy in the afternoon, 4 or 5 days a week. I would have people like waiting to like get in the cage, and I was teaching kids how to hit, and I loved it. And it was a ministry opportunity, and I got to teach some little boys how to hit that they didn't have dads in their life or moms in their life that were helping them hit. And so it really became like an avenue for the gospel. And yet in all that, when I started to raise support, I realized, man, I don't have time to get some of these appointments I need to have. So that was my thing. Like, and there was a lot of like prayer and thought, like it wasn't a simple thing,
Mhm.
but that was, I guess, kind of a big thing that I had to set down to go, you know what, this really good thing is not as important as my great thing, and if I'm going to keep the end goal in mind of being spiritually healthy, vision driven, fully funded, I need to just own the fact that as much as I love baseball, it's sidetracking me. Like, it's keeping me from doing that which I needed to do. So my sons were still on baseball teams, and I still went to almost all their games and all that kind of stuff. But I stopped being kind of a side gig, part-time professional baseball hitting coach. It became something I didn't do anymore. And that was actually really hard. If I'm just being honest, that was actually really hard for me to let go of. Also, it's what I needed to do.
Yeah. And I think also to being realistic about our limitations, our strengths, our, weaknesses, that can really create awareness that can be really helpful in optimizing capacity. And I think if you're aware in which capacities you actually have strengths in and others that you can explore growth in, you're naturally more likely to grow. So really, capacity has a lot to do with self-awareness, not so much about just how many hours in the day that I have. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's just, and it's hard. And actually, I have a lot of compassion for people that are struggling with this one, because I mean, honestly, it was really hard for me to let go. I had parents calling me and like saying these like wonderfully encouraging, terrible things like, "You're the only coach my child's ever been able to play with. Please don't stop coaching my child." Like these like wonderful things that it was just like, you want people to believe in you and love you and stuff like that. And I had to go, yeah, but that is not the season of ministry I'm called into anymore. And Jesus loved that child before I ever taught him how to hit, and Jesus can love that child away after I'm not coaching him anymore. But yeah, I kind of had to do some die to self kind of stuff, and it just wasn't necessarily easy, but I had to keep that end goal in mind. And so, and I realized there are a lot of people out there, they're not passionate about baseball. They think I'm being silly, but just trust me. I had all the feels, Jen. I had all the feels.
I get it. Yeah. I think it's about, if we aren't being intentional, typically the loudest voice is going to grab our attention instead of the goal area that we're really wanting to focus on. So I think it's important to be focused on that.
Okay, cool. All right. So we have one more thing we want to talk about with trying to avoid burning out or giving up, whatever you call it. And so I talked about, having some help. So unpack that for us, Jen.
Yeah. So I think it's an important tool to have a friend or a teammate or somebody that you can talk to about support raising. And I'm even saying, if you've got a coach, let's say sidebar this here. If you don't have a coach, get a coach if you can.
Amen.
Because coaching is just so helpful in the area of support raising. It keeps you going. It has that high accountability. There's somebody that's going to be thinking with you about next steps, helping you along the way, that kind of thing. So if you don't have a coach, get a coach. But I'm even saying beyond coaching, if you've got a coach, also grab a friend or a teammate or somebody that you can talk to about your support raising. And I have my missionaries set this up with each other. So once they get done with the training, they will grab each other, and once a week, they kind of set it up, who's going to initiate, who's going to call, who's going to not call. But they call each other on the phone, and once a week just get a little update and pray for each other. And it only takes about 15, 20 minutes, or could take longer if you wanted it to, but they've got that built in, like somebody cares, somebody knows what I'm walking through, somebody is going to hold me accountable, and I'm going to tell them at the end of the day, how's it going? And it's also that spiritual piece where somebody can actually pray with you about your support raising and what's going on. So I really encourage that, create like that accountability partner piece, whatever that looks like for you. But I think it's just gold to sort of have a friend or have a teammate or have somebody that you've met that's also support raising kind of journey along with you.
Okay, you said something really big there. Who's also support raising or who has been fully funded.
Yeah,
I want to throw that in there because unfortunately, what the low hanging fruit is people that they don't know anything about support raising. Maybe they love Jesus, maybe they love you, but they don't even realize what it is you're going through, or they don't even understand God's economy very well and how most missionaries are funded and blah, blah, blah. So if I can just kind of throw in a disclaimer in there, please have it be the right kind of person that knows what they're talking about. Jen, I'm sure you have too. I have had to counsel far too many missionary type leaders who have been following what really amounts to terrible advice, if not discouragement from people that are speaking into their life that are rather unqualified. Is that a nice way to say it?
Yeah. And to add to that too, like think through who you want to talk with. You don't want to just like misery loves company. So if you're going through a season where you're struggling, don't ask somebody to, commiserate with you. And so you guys can just have like a mutual, misery party.
Right.
You want somebody that's going to be positive and also, lift you up spiritually. That lift you up term is probably very important because you don't want to just have somebody that you can, complain with for 15 minutes. That's not going to feel good at the end of the day.
Right.
Obviously, you want to be authentic and sharing your heart and your feelings, but I'm just saying, like, think through who that person is.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
All right. So with all that being said, boy, we could talk on and on and on about that. Of course, you and I do some stuff with coaching ministry leaders. You do with Eurasia and also with Exago a little bit. But also, there are other things out there where people can find a support raising coach. You might have somebody in your organization who they're just an older, wiser veteran and they're available. Or maybe, wouldn't this be great? Maybe your organization actually has somebody who coaches that is a wonderful veteran that can walk the walk and talk the talk. So here's the deal, though. What I see really frequently is people don't have that friend or the teammate. They don't know who it is and they don't look for them. So Jenn, if I can just add on to your idea there of finding somebody like that, it's accept the fact that you might have to search. You might have to spend some money, but you need to find a person to relate with. Whether that's somebody that's just a wise friend that's been down this road before, or a professional, someone that coaches or whatever else. But if you don't make this a priority, the odds are pretty high you're not going to find this person. Wouldn't you agree, Jenn?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, well, okay. So our whole point of this 3-part series was to, tell people to not give up. So Jenn, we've hit 5 different kind of bullet points of conversation over these 3 episodes. Per my habit in hosting the SRS podcast, I always like to leave the final thought, so to speak, with the guests. So first of all, let me just say thank you so much for joining us on the SRS podcast. As always, you are a delight, Jenn. We love having you hang around with us. But secondarily, any final words of wisdom that you will leave to our listeners that hopefully have listened to all 3 episodes?
Yeah, I would just say the struggle, like if you're somebody right now that's listening that's sort of saying like, I am burnt out, I am wondering if I should quit, I am wondering what the Lord is saying, like, seek God's counsel. But I would say to you, if you're leaning towards staying in ministry, like, let's stay in ministry. Let's do this thing. Let's continue on the path. Let's see what God has. And I don't know what to say other than, God wants you probably more than you want to be involved. He wants you involved. I'm not just a cheerleader here going, rah, 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 go to bed on time and don't burn out by taking a Sabbath and, and grab a friend and keep the goal in mind. And yes, those things are true and they are really important. And that's why we spent this whole time talking about it. But if your heart's like challenged right now, spend some time with God on it and really get in the Word and write that stuff out, journal it out, pray it out and see what God is actually saying. Is it your fear that's challenging you to give up? Is it weariness? Is it heaviness? Or is it, there's a new opportunity and something's different? So I just want to, reach across the microphone or your phone or your computer or whatever it is you're doing and just say, like, really give it some thought. And I'm praying for you because I know so many people that are out there that are challenged in full-time ministry. And you're important. God loves you.
Amen. I have nothing to add to that. That was beautiful. So, Jenn, thank you so much for being on the SRS podcast.
Yeah, thank you. You guys have a good day.
Thanks for joining us for this episode. We would love to hear your ideas for future content. Please visit supportraisingsolutions.org/feedback to share your thoughts and questions. Also, Wherever you download your podcast from, be sure to subscribe for future episodes and come back each week to gain more insight into the process of building and maintaining your personal support team.